These chairs, huh?
Yeah, it's like 10, 11.
All right, yeah. Well, it's 7 o'clock. Just let me know when you're ready, and then we'll go live. All right, Harsh, it's your show.
All right. This is the official call to order for the Albany Arts Committee on Monday, February 12, 2024. And do we start with the roll call?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's.
All right. Member Carlton is absent. Member One?
Aye. Oh, here.
Member Shaw?
Here.
Member Green?
Here.
Member Baldwin?
Here.
And Member Chen?
Here. And I'm here because participating remotely because I have a contagious illness right now. And so I will keep my camera on the whole time, but I'm here through AB 2449. And right now I'm the only person in this room. My cousin may enter at some point, but most likely not. And so I'm the only person in this room.
All right, thank you. And then if one of you would like to read the land acknowledgement?
I'm happy to do that, if that sounds good. All right. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lisjan. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a future for all that now make this their home. All right. And with that, we move on to the approval of the minutes from January's meeting.
Did everybody get a chance to take a look at the minutes? Any changes? Okay. Would you like me to bring them up to take a look at or review or anything like that? Okay.
Does anyone need to see the minutes? Looking around? No, looks like we're all good.
Okay.
Great. Well, I move to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Let me do a call here. Member One?
Aye.
Member Baldwin?
Aye.
Member Green?
Aye.
Member Chen?
Aye.
Member Shaw?
Aye.
That brings us to public comment. If they're not seeing anybody here in the audience, if there are anybody in the virtual audience, you can raise your hand on Zoom. It looks like we have one person raising their hand. You can go ahead and call him. Go ahead, Jeremiah.
Good evening, everybody. Happy President Lincoln's birthday. So regarding the land acknowledgement statement, I was suggested, I guess, by city staff to make a public comment during this meeting as well as potentially some others. Regarding the land acknowledgement statement that we just so read in the beginning of these meetings as a formality. I was wondering and I was hoping for a better future. In that land acknowledgement statement, it says something about we as City Albany commit to sustaining an ongoing relationship. I was wondering what this committee is doing regarding that. I have a suggestion to put the land acknowledgement statement on a plaque somewhere, I guess a piece of art, Up there behind everybody on that wall, there's a city seal. It's a big green wall. It's very bare, but it sure would be nice to see those land acknowledgement statement in writing somewhere at the city hall. Maybe in the lobby, up on the wall somewhere. Maybe in a park. I don't know where. Maybe an art. I don't know what committee or what city staff can approve, but I think we owe the Ohlone tribe to at least put the land acknowledgement statement somewhere visible for the public to see, instead of it being so hidden and untransparent for everybody. So I was just hoping for more transparency, and that land acknowledgement statement could be visible for everybody to see. You know, maybe a star on Solano Avenue, you know, like they do the Hollywood stars. Maybe we could put a plaque, you know, in the cement somewhere. I don't know. But future agenda item, it's just food for thought. But I think it's a good idea. I just think it's been overlooked. That's all. I just think it's been overlooked. But let's work on getting that land acknowledgement statement in writing somewhere in the city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else raise their hand? Public
Oh,
comment?
I'm not seeing any other hands.
All right. Let's move on to announcements, if we have any from staff.
Just a couple. We continue to make progress on the new website. Looking forward to bringing that forth. Things are going a little bit slower, so it will likely be in December or January of 2025. Some good news to announce is in working with Brad, we were able to get the foyer gallery into our e-news, so that went out, and hopefully there was a good turnout as a result of some of the outreach. Also, the call for artists for the foyer gallery will go out in the next City of Albany activity guide. So we put together a call, and we'll do some more official outreach when it gets closer to that launch date of April 1st, 2024, to receive the applications for foyer gallery for 2025. So those are my announcements.
Great, can't wait to see more of the website when it starts coming together. All right, over to item number 5.
Are there any other staff announcements?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else have any? No? Okay.
Yeah, no presentations. Brings us to 6.1. And I can go ahead and I can take that from here. And then thank you, Harsh. Thank you, Deirdre, for all of your work putting together what we initially envisioned to be a request for qualifications. But upon further scrutiny, once we got into it and really took a look at the Public Arts Master Plan, it really was more appropriate to do a call for artists for the first mural project on the BART pillars. So our committee members have put in a lot of work to do kind of the main framework of what the call would be, brought it back to staff, and we made a number of edits to get it to conform with the other public art projects. So I think we put together a really good scope here, which we'll be ready to share with the public. I should mention that in addition to the draft call for artists that is included in tonight's agenda, within this next week and a half, I'll take some of that supplemental information that was removed from the document, and we'll feature that on a website page that has images, live links, and the full scope for the entirety of the mural project, so that there will be a reference. So when we go forward with the next 3 projects, we will only need to change the theme for each one, and any specific details to location if that's necessary. Yeah, so essentially the format is done with all of the details, and then the theme and locations will be what we change in the subsequent call for artists. We will have to do this 3 additional times and convey 3 different panels. But I think that once we get through this process, it'll become clear how the process works. And Harsh, Deirdre, as a subcommittee on the mural program, do you have anything you'd like to add as we look at this? Do you want me to bring up the document? We'll review anything together. I'm actually, one thing is I should remind you, we do not need to vote on this. This is for review. But if there are any substantive changes that the committee would like to make, then we would need to make note of that and then do a vote to accept it with changes.
I have no changes.
You-
Same on mine.
yeah, right, exactly.
So I think I'm done for now.
Okay.
You said we have to do it 3 times?
So do either one of you want to talk about
Yeah.
what the process will be?
Since there's 4 mural sites and we're now preparing a call for artists or for the single site, we'd have to do this again for the 3 additional sites as
Okay,
well, since
so
there's a
4 in
total of 4
in total.
sites.
Yeah.
Okay.
And each site has a slightly different theme, so, and then obviously dimensions and everything. So we just decided it was easier to treat them separately. But we're hoping that we can go straight on to the next one pretty quickly.
We'll need to make a determination whether or not you want to have these all happening at the same time in different parts of the city and just
Yeah.
kind of go like, okay, so, yeah, let's get into this one and then start moving on the,
Yeah,
on
that's
the
what
next.
we'd like to do.
Okay.
May 1,000 murals bloom, but
Yes.
by 1,000 I mean 4. Yeah.
And the,
Is the call for artists versus the call for qualifications just the name difference, or was there a substantial difference in the contents too?
In our conversations with staff and consulting the Public Arts Master Plan, if we did what would, there was more information included than what would be provided in a typical request for qualifications. Since we were getting specific to site and specific to monetary amount, typically a request for qualifications would just be qualifications and not be site-specific and not be tied to a particular funding amount. And if we did that, then we might be able to gather a number of artists and then only send the call for artists to that pool of applicants. With this, since we were looking at it, first it was kind of hybrid, and then the more we looked at it, it's more specifically a call for artists. With the call for artists, we can be site-specific and then announce the budget, not to exceed a certain amount for the project.
and it's still the 2 BART pillars on either side of Solano.
Yes.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and I think from the perspective of Deirdre and I think we're optimizing with this approach, I think we optimize for speed for this specific site, which I think having some momentum was important to us, because I think that we can learn much more quickly and start to hopefully scale what we've learned to more sites as well. So instead of having 3 finalists and be able to choose from proposals from the 3 finalists, what this does instead is we will just end up having 1 finalist and deciding as a committee on that 1 finalist proposal. And this is, again, as Jeremy mentioned, so that we can comply with the Arts Master Plan and the process that's laid out there.
So what I just pulled up here is the project timeline. So this will be presented to the public by February 20th, this month. And then all applications will be due by May 20th. Notification of finalists will be July of 2024. Finalist proposals will be due September 2024. There will be a 3-month community outreach in which a display will be presented at the community center to receive feedback. And there will be a finalist interview in December Notification of artists, December, January 2025, and then 6 months to complete the project. So it is feasible that we can have this multiple happening at the same time. We'll have to coordinate with the community center because we wouldn't want to have overlap of too many installations on display at the same time. So
How long are they on display?
3 months. Yeah, September, October, and November. So we're getting started, but it still is a long process. You figure about 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years for each, public arts project to go through the full process of application to ribbon cutting. Are there any other questions before we open it up for public comment? All right, so let's go ahead and move to public comment. Looks like we have one hand raised in our virtual audience. Go ahead, Jeremiah.
Good evening again. Yeah. So I'm wondering what kind of outreach is going to be organized for students, and I'm wondering also, is there an age? Not age limit, but age minimum. Is that a thing, age minimum? Do you have to be a certain age? I mean, could we do outreach to the middle school? Could we do outreach to the elementary? Do we make it fun for everybody? Could everybody feel included? So that's one for the schools and students. Also, did I hear you guys mention that is like winner take all? There's just one winner, so the winner gets to do both sides of Solano. I'm not sure how inclusive or all that is if there's just one winner. It'd be nice if there was, one pillar per person. And the last question is, why just Solano? Is this a pilot program? Other side of Marin would look nice, other side of Dartmouth, and so on, every single pillar would be great. So maybe this is a pilot program. If it looks good, if it does well, maybe we could petition for some more pillars in the future. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment. I don't see any other hands raised. Maybe Harsh, you want to address some of those? There's 3 questions that I noted. One was qualifications for the artists and whether or not youth would be part. What are the specific locations? And then remind me what the third question was. I was trying to make notes and listen at the same time. I think age.
One artist for all 4 pillars.
Correct. Yeah, thank you.
That's the middle question. Yeah, sure, happy to speak to them. So the first is around age requirement. I don't recall if we've actually inserted an age requirement. We did, okay, is it a?
It's professional artists 18 years of age or older.
Okay,
I
so,
think he was talking about outreach, getting feedback on the.
That's true. Well, I think it was both. The first part was about outreach, and the outreach will be a physical modeling of the artwork on display at the community center, similar to what we do for all public art projects. And that will be there in the foyer gallery area between the library and the community center, set up with a description of the project and a means of receiving written feedback from community members. We will also announce that is there in our e-news website and social media to invite people to come and take a look and provide feedback.
Of all ages.
Of all ages, correct.
great. And I think the second question or comment had to do with the pillars and the fact that it's just one artist across all 4 pillars, and that just has to do with just the amount of resourcing we have as volunteers on this arts committee, which is our goal is to provide some amount of visual cohesion across the four pillars, and it makes it, much more complicated to do so if we have four different artists painting in potentially four different styles. So it's certainly something we can explore for other sites, but at least for this one, we've decided on one artist. And then I think the third question had to do with, there's just a lot of great spaces around Albany to have murals, and I'd say that the Murals Subcommittee agrees with that. And hopefully this is just the start of many more, but, even to get paint on a wall on one side, it takes about 3 years. So it's a long road, but we're on that journey.
We should also mention too that this particular project, this is the first mural installation out of a total of 4. So there will be 3 other murals as part of this particular project. So this is the first mural, and one of the other things to note about this particular project is what is unique about this is some of the locations are not on city-owned property. So there's a high degree of communication and advanced work that both Member Green and Member Shaw have done in order to work with property owners to determine the specifics of doing public art on private property. So it's slightly different than doing public art on city property. And you need to go through some more procedural hoops to make sure that everything is done correctly.
So it's all 4 pillars and then 3 other murals.
Yes.
3 other sites.
3 other sites,
But
correct.
this one is just for the pillars.
I thought we were being ambitious with the pillars.
Yeah. Well, we decided to go with the hardest first.
And the private property is BART, right?
Correct.
In this case, we also have additional private property as part of the other remaining. Okay.
All right. Barring any further discussion or modifications, we can proceed. This item does not need a vote unless you were to change some aspects of the call for artists. So if there are no changes and no further discussion, we can move on to the next item.
All right. Looks like we are moving on. Over to 6.2 for subcommittee updates. And the first on the list is the art gallery.
Let's see, Member Carlton is out, but I believe Member Chen may have some updates related to the gallery. I have a few things that I can add.
Okay. Yeah, I believe the reception for Li Ching Acurso was last Sunday, and then we're setting up the calendar for the rest of the year, and as we have mentioned, the Ela Jarvis and Lucy Ames were of the 2 approved artists. I think Ela is scheduled to go after Li Ching, and then in addition to that, I think we might also have an art gallery slot for Susan Moffett, the social justice art project, and so that we might have that one scheduled in the fall before Lucy has her art gallery. And so what that means is that we might have the artists all scheduled up until the first quarter of 2025, instead of the end of 2024 like we previously had thought. And I guess another update is that Jeremy and Brad have been working on updating the applications for the art gallery, and I think that we were planning, I think you had mentioned that we're gonna make that available online on April 1st, but now I'm thinking whether, because we won't need to fill more artists until the spring of 2025, maybe it would be better to have the call go out later this year, just because it seemed like from this cycle that some of the artists were frustrated that there's such a long time between when they first submit the application and then when they hear back, and then ultimately when we schedule them. So that's also something to consider now that we have maybe artists filled up until the spring of next year. And then one last point or question or so is trying to set up some sort of way in which we can communicate. I don't know if this is something that other subcommittees have thought about, is having some official email in which they are communicating from, or whether other committee members have created like their own art committee email address, or maybe we could all create something together just for communications to go out through something that seems like it's more official from the art committee.
Yeah, I can add a little bit to that. In fact, I'm sorry, I forgot during my announcements, I forgot to mention that Isabel and I were able to meet with Susan Moffett last week. We had a very good conversation for about an hour and a half to determine the details of the contract for the creative justice art project. In talking with her, she will not be able to provide a gallery until the end of 2025. So her scope of work likely will be happening throughout 2025. But it will culminate in a final gallery showing at the community center, but fall 2025, not fall 2024. So that would mean that this year we have 2 artists to go through the rest of this year, unless we make some other type of change or consider another artist from before or modification. So we can discuss that. Either the subcommittee can with me to come up with some ideas, or we can bring it back to the entire arts committee at the next meeting. We are working on and I'm basically done with all the new applications and the new procedure updated details that have been a long time coming for the entirety of the foyer gallery process. So it's just clear for everybody. Clear for the gallery manager, clear for staff, clear for the recreation department, clear for the artists. And then having a determined follow-up after a submittal. That's a good point, and that's good to hear in terms of how long an artist has to wait after submitting an application. If we went live in April 1st with a call for artists, typically September 1st would be the closing date. And then at that first Arts Committee meeting in September, that would be when the Arts Committee reviews. So it would be something that we could agendize for the next meeting if we wanted to discuss that and make some changes. We could certainly do that at the March meeting. If we wanted to start the call for artists, say in April, and end it in June, and then take care of booking artists in June and July, which gives us maybe some more time to add an additional artist for the end of 2025. That's a possibility. Or we could delay until May or June. I'm not sure if there's any specifications for the foyer gallery, if it needs to stay open for a period of time, but I can check and find out. And then delay, start it later, like Member Chen suggested, and then receive all the applications in September so that there's less time. But those are all certainly possibilities worth discussing. And with regard to setting up a correspondence email address, I'll have to check and get back to you about that. I don't believe that there is an official way for us to set up an email, a city email for advisory body members. There are some Brown Act considerations. If you were to set up a different email address, like a Arts Committee at Gmail, something like that. I'm not sure what the communications were in the past, specifically between gallery managers and artists, or whether or not it was a staff. I believe it was a staff letter of thank you for submitting, but thanks but no thanks kind of letter. I'll have to check in on that and see what the procedure was in the past. Like I said a few times, this is my first time here on the Arts Committee. And stepping into this, I think we realized that there were a number of knowledge deficiencies in terms of how to communicate with the artists, specifically about the foyer gallery. And I don't want to hurt too many artists' feelings or have them be frustrated. We want to maintain good relationships with the artists who are willing to showcase their work at that gallery. So I think, does that answer most of the questions that were raised here?
Yeah, and I guess going back to the timeline thing, maybe simply just putting on the applications that now we know that the earliest the showings would be winter of 2025, and so maybe that's sufficient just to let people know that that's the earliest time in which they would begin showing, or that it would span from 2020, the whole year of 2025 is when this call is for.
That's kind of how we, when it goes out in the activity guide, that's the language that I put in there, that this is an application for your gallery 2025.
Okay.
So we'll keep that consistent on the website and with all the documents as we move forward with that. Any other questions on For Your Art Gallery?
So does that mean we should decide now about whether we want to add it to the agenda for?
We could look at that at future agenda items if we want to talk about that, or we can talk about it now, either one.
I think from my perspective, just.
Oh, but I should mention, we do have one hand raised, and if there are no more questions, we should go to public comment on this. Yeah. All right, then I will go to public comment, and. All right, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, just point of interest, I was listening, and I was on the Social Economic Justice Commission a couple years ago. I was the school district's appointee. And you were talking about your subcommittee, and that was one of the things that I really took interest in, was the subcommittee meetings and the lack of organization there was around it. There was no training on subcommittees and all this stuff, but the way we had organized it was our staff liaison, city clerk, Ann, she would send us the same Zoom link whenever we had a subcommittee meeting. So we just let her know the time and date, and then we'd all get the link, and we just have our subcommittee meeting on Zoom. That worked out great. But I wouldn't see why the community center, couldn't open up one of the rooms for subcommittee to meet, because it was difficult finding a meeting place. I think we met at Howell's once on Solano, but it's hard for the subcommittees to find a meeting place like that. But it was easy when we had that Zoom link. So that was just my 2 cents on all that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Yeah, so if we'd like to do anything specific about this for the next meeting, or we can just continue to work on it as a subcommittee.
Yeah, I think my suggestion was just to hear from the subcommittee, and since they're kind of looking after the timeline and know it best.
Yeah, okay.
But I don't know if Member Chen has a different perspective, or?
About which point?
About whether we should agendize this as a discussion, or any changes to the foyer gallery process for this upcoming season, or whether or not we should just deal with that within the context of the subcommittee. Either would be fine. The website application process, letters, is mostly an administrative function. The communications with the artist is a gallery manager function. So we certainly can do this and update the committee when things are changed, or we can bring this back as an agenda item to the entire Arts Committee and hammer it out and figure out those details here in open session.
Okay, yeah, I believe that a lot of it is just what is most figuring through logistics and trying to keep the artists, have good communications with the artists. So I don't think it's that necessary to bring it to the overall committee, but I'm open to that if people would prefer that.
Okay, then if somebody wants to add it at future agenda items, then we can.
All right. Do we move on? Now,
Yeah.
over to the Sculpture Loan Subcommittee.
For the Sculpture Loan Committee, me and Member Guan met together last week just to kind of figure out what our roles are within the Sculpture Loan. And so right now, kind of our timeline is to try to work on the loan extension with the current artist, Jeff Downing, and also with the city to try to put together the loan extension and whether any amount would be needed for that. The artist the selling price for the current piece is $4,800, and so that's about 2 or 2.5 times the original stipend amount. So that's also a possibility, but at least not within the current the art plan, because that's more than how much, or is, I think, a majority of how much of the funds that we have, but that's a possibility to consider in the future. Yeah, so and then once the timeline and the extension of that in the budget for the current piece is figured out, then we're planning on trying to put out a call for the current pad. So that's where things stand with the sculpture loan. I don't know if Jeremy, do you have any? Is Isabel the right person that we reach out to for trying to put together the loan extension agreement?
Yes, Isabel would be the person, and me too. I think Isabel has the most knowledge about that. And if you just wanted to CC me in any correspondence, that would be fine. One of the art and the public places amounts that the Arts Committee considered earlier can be modified. It would just need to go to council. So if the Arts Committee decided that they were interested in purchasing a piece to have on permanent display in that particular location, even though there is a designated amount with that line item that the Arts Committee already recommended council and council approved, that could be modified. There is some additional funding for small scale projects that was kept in reserve that hasn't been allocated for anything. So something to consider if you were going to look at this issue again and if the art committee felt strongly about purchasing rather than loaning or doing something else. So that like Member Chen said, that is an option.
Yeah, I think that, and other people should feel free to chime in that that the intention of the loan program is to try to feature as many artists as possible. So I like to try to, I want to have the extension in for 2 years just to give us time to find the artist to fill the other pad. But I would like to try to keep it as a temporary program, just to give as much opportunity for different people to be featured.
Are there any other questions from the company? So we can go to public comment on this if there is any. I don't see anybody here in the place, and I don't see any hands raised, so it looks like we can move on to the next subcommittee.
Oh, I do have.
Go ahead, question.
Yeah, so just to understand, so it would be $2,500 for us to keep it on loan for additional 2 years, is that correct?
No, I'm not sure if there is any amount that is expected or whether there's there's nothing, I think, in the previous agreement of whether the loan extension would if we would offer more money for the loan extension, but I imagine that given that the artist is responsible for maintaining the piece in the next 2 years, that there would be some amount that we would give them for extending the loan, but it's not written, I don't think, anywhere of what that would be. But given that I think the original amount was 2,500, I think I'm like penciling in 1,000 right now for the extension.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Got it.
we'll have to clarify that. That was something that Isabel and I talked about. I think it was unclear, so we'll have to go back to the original contract and take a look and see. There is an amount that is held in reserve that is payable to the artist when the contract expires and to cover the fees of removal, I believe.
Yeah,
Right, I think you said that that's been set aside already. Go ahead.
I'd be curious what the amounts look like for keeping it on for another 2 years versus purchasing it, being able to compare those two, because as I understand it, even getting a sculpture on this pad took about 3 years. So once we remove this sculpture, if we do another loan for 2 years, and we have 3 years of a blank pad, or even optimistically, 2 years, I wonder then if we might actually consider just purchasing it for this site and looking to find sculptures for the alternative sites. But anyways, I guess we can evaluate once we see the numbers.
What do you mean that it'll be blank for 3 years?
I think the sculpture loan program, from the inception of the program to getting an actual sculpture there on the pad, took about 3 years.
Right, but if this was extended until 2026, then I think then in the future PAPP, that's when the budget for replacing the current piece that's in would go in.
Correct.
Yeah, I think what we probably would do is bring this back either as a presentation or as an item to talk, with the real specifics of, because as I hear you discuss it, like there's some cost benefits to purchasing if you're going to spend the same amount of money over the course of a period of time with the loan. That we may want to look at both of those together to see, and then also having a plan to replace it so it doesn't sit empty for a period of time after that sculpture goes away. So I think what I'm hearing Member Chen saying is extending the loan, and in the meantime filling the one blank pad that we have. And I think what I'm hearing as an option from Member Shaw is leaving at least one sculpture loan location open for rotating new artists, as opposed to having all of them rotating all the time, in order to, because it's taken some time to get artists in place and get their sculptures there.
That's right. I think, to me, I think the math, that's where the math plays in, which is, hey, if it's 2,500 or so, for example, to have it on loan for 2 years versus we buy it for 5,000, seems like maybe there's just cost benefits to outright purchasing it, though I do realize that takes away a single site. But the other sites have existed and nothing's gone on them, just to kind of show.
May even be
Complexity.
possible to add additional sites if
Yeah.
one stays in, from just casual observation and some informal commentary. A lot of people like it at that particular location. It's a beautiful sculpture in a nice prominent location. So maybe that one stays, and maybe that's the future of the sculpture loan program, is to have a variety of sculptures. They come in as loaners for a period of time, and then if they're popular, then they stay. I don't know, maybe something changes within the scope of the program, and as spaces come available, new sites are identified and procured for future sculpture loans. Could be. Looks
Right,
like,
I agree that I like that possibility of finding new sites in the future, and that overall, like, I think buying a piece and featuring it long-term is not that much more than doing it alone. And then if there's the possibility of kind of expanding this to different places throughout the city, then I also like that idea as well.
So we'll keep in contact with the subcommittee for the sculpture loan program, and then we'll see if there's a future agenda where we need to bring this back to discuss it in more detail with the entirety of the committee, if we need to make changes to the program for the next PAPP.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. I realized we sort of skipped over murals, but I know we covered murals earlier.
If you'd like to go back to the mural subcommittee and discuss anything else.
Probably the only thing I'd say is I think we are looking to get the process started potentially on some of the other sites as well. So that's just a heads up to the committee that, yeah, as we see this one move forward, I think it creates a playbook that we can use for future sites.
I'll talk with Isabel and maybe copy you on an email to see what sort of ramification that would have with the rest of all the other city stuff happening. I don't know if in the past there have been multiple public art projects happening at different tiered start times or not, or how specifically that should work, whether or not we need to wait a few months or 6 months from now, or can we get started at the next meeting? I'm really not sure. So I'll find out, get back with you, and then hopefully we can all have something to report back at the March meeting. It looks like we do have a hand raised on this item here. Okay, go ahead.
Real quick, so this is a different project. I'm just wondering if it's the same age requirements, if this is like a common trend to where, you know, you have to be able to vote for city council to be able to participate in a public art thing. You know, I mean, at least 18 years old, right? So I'm just wondering, in these public art things, where's the advocate for students? You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Leonardo or Michelangelo or Da Vinci did some of their best artwork before they turned 18. You know, and what makes an 18-and-a-half-year-old artist professional and, you know, a 17-and-a-half-year-old artist unprofessional? I just think that hard line of 18 is too much. But and then the other thing is, so I'm always going to give a shout out for students because I feel like no one ever includes them. And then the other shout out is for the Alonis, for the mission statement. You know, has anybody reached out to Alonis? Because I'm sure they got some beautiful artwork. I'm sure they got some beautiful sculptures. You know, a totem pole or a statue of a chief. You know, let's work on establishing those relationships and those commitments we read. You know, so yeah. So shout outs to the Alonis. Please include them, and shout out for students. We need to make this fun for everybody of all ages, please. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Is that all right? With that, I think we will move over to the marketing subcommittee.
Okay. Jeremy said this before in the announcements, but Brad has had the Leaching a Curso postcard sent out on e-news. And then just like our next project is to promote the Isla Jarvis display. And they're planned for the beginning of June, but we haven't talked about the details yet, but that will be our next project.
Okay, thank you. Oops. Sorry about that. Yeah, and I'm not seeing any hands raised here on this side.
All right. Anyone have anything else on that, or if that? Nothing, all right, we move over to the Aaron sculpture restoration.
So last meeting, I reached out to Mark Knepa. He has not responded. So we have some decisions to make based on what we want, how we want to move forward with the heron sculpture. We could reach out for a quote from Walter Mork, which is a company that the Arts Committee reached out to in like 2012, and they gave a quote on a restoration, and I believe they did restore it, but I'm not sure. We could reach out to them. We could, yeah, I just want to know what you guys think our course of action should be.
I would say that, you know, after a certain point of not receiving any communication back from the artist, and after it's been, it's,
A month.
well, it's been since the initial, since it was installed, that was what, 2003, 4?
1995.
1995 was the installation? Okay.
I believe so.
Yeah, I'll let-
And then he got into contact in 2009, gave a presentation, probably in this room, and then there's been sort of a drought in communication.
So I would say after, you know, a certain number of times trying to communicate, to talk directly with the artist, we can move forward with the past practice of doing the restoration. I think that's what the committee discussed at the last time this was discussed by the full committee, that we were interested in doing restoration, so we can look into getting quotes for what the cost would be, so the committee can make a decision about what to do from there. I think that would be, and that would be something that we do as a staff function, with your assistance, if you wanted to provide, you know, I think I shared all of those details with you for the previous restorer, but we can work with our Public Works Department to get official quotes from verified professionals to do that kind of work.
Do I need to do anything on that part?
Maybe try and communicate with them one more time between now and the next meeting, and if you make contact, and then at the March meeting, we can make the determination just to move forward with getting quotes and proceeding to, if the costs are reasonable and the committee feels that's a good use of public arts funding to restore that sculpture.
Awesome. Well, then that's all from me.
If there's no questions from the committee, we can take it to public comment on this subcommittee update if there are any, but it doesn't look like there's any hands raised. All right, so that takes us to 6.3, the election of chair and vice chair, which is on the agenda. Since we have one absent, or actually two absent members, I'm just realizing that right now, and our chair is out, then I would suggest we simply postpone this item until the March agenda. We don't need to do a vote on that, but if there's any, yeah, okay. Actually, let's just do a vote just in case. If we can get a motion and a second to table this item until the next, then we'll just be we'll be safe.
Okay, I move that we table that item 6.3 to the March meeting.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Member Green?
Yes.
Member Baldwin? Member Wan?
Aye.
Member Chen?
Aye.
Vice Chair Cha?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll table that. That takes us to future agenda items. If anybody on the committee who has an item for the upcoming or any upcoming agenda, if you want to, now, does anybody have any items? Okay, it looks like we do have one comment from the public. Go ahead.
agenda item, the mission statement art plaque or the mission statement artwork. I don't know how we want to call it, but the mission statement sculpture.
Okay, thank you. All right. And if there's no future agenda items, the next meeting is Monday, March 11th, 2024. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Thank you, Chair Chen, for joining us from far away. And if there's anything else, we are adjourned.